Great. Welcome to the Virtual Business Owners Network on Friday, 28th of March. And delighted to welcome Nick Cloake with his presentation today. Is your brand fit for purpose? Okay, take it away, Nick.
Okay. Morning, folks. So what we're talking about today is it's an opportunity for you to look at your brand. You all have one, by the way, and how, is it fit? Is it working for you? Does it have the right elements in it that you need? Could it be evolved? So this is going to pose more questions than answers. In reality, the only way I can do this is to show examples. So there's no overt selling here. You may think the work is wonderful or rubbish or whatever, but I'm not trying to sell you anything. So let's, I've only 15 minutes, so let's start into this. But the first thing is to kind of understand what the elements of your brand identity actually are. And they're based on kind of three things. One is the physical, and that's the visual identity. And the visual identity is made up of these elements in the outer ring. So it's like what type of photography you use, fonts, your logo, which is only one part of this, visual language, color, guidelines. The inner circle is the guiding principles. So these are the things that are really important in messaging. What are the core values? What's the personality? Do you have an elevator pitch? Everyone should have an elevator pitch. Do you have insights on your audience? What is the tone of voice, the TOV? And then these are all things you need to look at. And if you don't have them, to think about them. And then the center of this is why. What's the purpose of this brand? What should it be doing? And you look at, these four things: strategic objectives. Strategy aligns the brand with goals, refines the brand, ensures its relevance. What are those objectives? What is your customers' insights? Do you understand what your customers want, your clients want? Why are you doing it? More importantly, what's your brand purpose? What does it stand for? And then what's the personality? So how does your brand interact with the people you want to talk to? And not just clients, it's suppliers, it's, there's a load of things, even the revenue, Rory, need to recognize your personality. So what you need to actually do is have a look at, all these things in the context of your brand. And what I always find interesting at these meetings is that there's a number of people who actually always include their brand. So for example, Sean will always have his lovely new brand identity behind him. So, it's Sean. And in fact, a really simple thing, I got a pen when I visited Sean's offices. Now, I got loads of pens, but I kept this one because it was actually a beautiful pen, and I like pens. And when this one runs out, I'll be back into you, Sean. But that is a piece of collateral that is actually really, really useful. And one of the things that we would always advise clients to do is, if you can get something you can get onto a client's desk, like a mug or a pen or whatever, it's a very, very useful device. Alec always has his name. Again, another beautiful logo, particularly the Red Sea. It says what he is. He's a business expert. And there's a bit of a description. And Raymond, who isn't here, but he, again, always has a logo and so on. So these are people who see that brand as being relevant. And this, even though it's an informal type of situation, it's important that you do these things. I use my backdrop as my brand. So it has this kind of studio type of sense to it. So I don't pop my logo in. So what's it mean for your business? But first of all, you need to choose the right logo. The logo, as I said, it's not your brand, but it's a really important part of your brand. It's the anchor. It's the thing that, that is quickly recognized if you get it right. So I was talking to Alec about this last week or so, and I decided to show you some logos from our history and what they might mean. So this is the original baseline logo from the 80s into the 90s. This is the next one, which was the logo till we closed the company. And then we had some other separate brands, which we didn't want to link with baseline, but we needed. So they had to look different. So DCH, Drew Cloake Hughes, is what that stands for. Now it's called Don't Call Hughes, as he left. InStock, which was a supply company that managed printing and things for large organizations like Bank of Ireland. And then these all evolved into these two brands. But if you look at what these logos mean, based on creative services, we thought it was the bee's knees at the time. Nice bit of type, but it was a bit brash, a bit distant, and it didn't have a consultative feel to it. So as our business evolved, and this is very important, as your business evolves, you may need to evolve your identity. So we changed it to baseline, which is friendly, personal, aspirational. The star is an aspirational thing. We changed the tagline. So instead of sounding like a design studio, we now sound more like a consultancy. And you pay consultants more than designers. DCH partners, communications consultants, we're actually hiding the core of this. So we're trying to avoid telling people it's Drew Cloake Hughes, it's DCH. And you'll see a lot of architectural companies who I think shouldn't have, but have changed their names. So RKD was something Keeley Devine, PKS, Patterson, Kempster, and Shortall. So they've made them more abstract, corporate, and distant. InStock is unique and original. It's an original illustration by a very expensive illustrator at the time. And then if you look at Alec Drew and Cloake, when we closed our businesses, what we had really left as our major brand asset was our personalities and our reputation. So the only way we could really move forward was to use our names as our brand. So, and that's kind of a little history from our side of things. But it shows that if you have the DCH, for example, are you making yourself distant? If you look at Sean's again, I'll use yours, Sean, analyze. It's such a very simple, straightforward, it says what it does type of thing. So, you need to consider that when you're. So when you're looking at a brand identity, as I said, the logo is an important thing, but it's all the other elements that are important as well. So a brand identity is made out of kind of three core things. One is the identity or the logo. I've chosen Evros here because it's one of my favorite clients and they did everything right. So the logo is straightforward. The tagline fresh thinking is a really good tagline that sets them apart. And they have a design system in place. So the little colored bars here are actually taken from the carpet in their boardroom and they've been applied across everything. So that's the design system I spoke about earlier and the color system. And we chose purple as the color because it was not widely used in the tech side at the time. And this is actually a brochure for Apple. They provide Apple products. And usually it was approved by Apple with only one change. And Apple are really, really difficult when it comes to getting these things across the line. So this kind of identity has been, they manage it well. They have all the elements in place. And no matter how big or small your company is, it's about applying that to the things that you use. So I'm sorry, and the first one is a very kind of aspirational thing. Evros is actually a river in Greece. The name means nothing, but it sounds like a tech company from Silicon Valley, and that's why we picked it. The second one is Atollo. You may have seen this before. The original name for this is DigiEdu for SEN. So we immediately got them to forget using that. SEN stands for Special Education Needs. We decided that in order to create a brand for this target market, it had to look like something that target market would be interested in. So we call it Atollo, which means to raise or elevate. And we've applied a design system here that's far from corporate. You know, it's actually fun. It's got lots of colorful elements. This is targeted at a broad spectrum of children, but mostly children from the ages of about 12 to their late teens. And the color system is all based on making that work. Excuse me. So what I'm saying is that brands should be directed at the target audience. That's really important. Integrity. So this is, you know, Hegarty was a rebrand, but it was a brand where this company has been going. I think the grandson is running it now. Um, it's been going for a long time. And the idea here was to make them look as, I think they're number 10 or number 8 in the rankings in construction companies, make them look like they've been, you know, doing things well or around for a while. We created a new website and Phil, you know, provided collateral. Like the one on the right is an advert, the left is the back of a report tab, and so on. But again, the color system's in place, and we created a new element, which is a repeat pattern of the insignia H, as we call it, this, so that there's this part of the design system we can use, and that went out on things like the dressing of sites and so on, and signage. Just conscious of time. Alec is like the Alfred Hitchcock of design. He gets into all our work, you know, as you can see here. But anyway, this is about identifying places where you can actually add your messaging. So there's no point having messaging if you can't use it. So this was a set of document dividers that they asked us to design because they did a lot of tenders. So we created 10 sections and they could apply these by JPEG into each, you know, as they needed them. Uh, everyone, the theme was triangles, so we used triangles, some form or other. But on the back, this is the back of the divider, and it has a client comment. So this is where they get their messaging, because the best messaging you can get is a testimonial from a client. And they, you know, so we got 10 of these, and we could change these if they needed them. So if there was a specific person they wanted to talk to and they had a comment that would suit better for them, we could actually recreate one of these sections very quickly and send it to them. So these are things I'd say you should focus on to see, is your brand fit for purpose? And it may well be, you know, but these are things you could examine. So identify your target audience. So everyone thinks they have, but you know, to look really in detail of who your current customers are, current clients, and who the clients you want are, and what type of things would turn them on. Develop key messaging, including your elevator pitch. Everyone should have an elevator pitch. I mean, it's that sentence that when you go into a lift in China and you're going to the 50th floor and you have to tell someone in a few words what it is you do. And everyone should know what you do and be able to say it in a fair, appropriate, and direct way. Consider a tagline if you don't have one. So tagline, Alec has one. I use an expression which is which I can't remember. Creative, effective, persuasive is my tagline or expression. But look at a way of getting a tagline that may help your brand. Evolve or change your logo if it doesn't seem the right fit. We changed baseline because the first one was too brutal and it suited for our launch, but the second one provided a much softer, more consultancy feel. Ensure A, that you use a design professional, but B, that they create a visual language for you. So you saw the things like in Evros where they had a colored band or so on. Adapt a common font or fonts. Google Fonts are free, and you can basically now go to a huge library of fonts and you can pick suitable fonts for your brand. Um, and then insist on consistency. Absolutely insist on consistency. So this is, we were talking about where people had worked together. Myself and Alec worked in this for Alternative Energy Ireland. So these are a couple of pages from the guidelines. And what it does is it ensures that anything this firm orders, they can hand these guidelines, and all the things you see here are supplied separately in the toolkit, and it will always be right. There'll be no reason why it won't be right. And then just some things to finish off and show you, which are each of these identities kind of have been created with the logo at the center to express a certain thing. So, for example, one of the ones I really like is Tender Team. I think it's got one of the best taglines, which they actually wrote, Welcome to Winning, which Jimmy will tell you about later. The Atolo I'm very proud of. Fergus Kelly's was a logo I always loved because it's about people hand doing things. They used to make all our binders. Um, Buy for Now was the first shopping portal in Ireland, and that was back in the early 90s. So we designed it to look like a tag at the back of a shirt or piece of clothing. Um, the Clancy Homes, you may recognize the Clancy brand, which is another big construction company, but they have several sub brands, Bloomfield being one, and Clancy Homes, we added in the people type of thing. And of course, you have the Virtual Business Owners Network, one of the most profitable and challenging pieces of work I've done in the past few years. So, questions?